Take a moment to thank the mishpacha of Rina Schwartz sponsoring, of course Rina and Ramati sponsoring L'chvod the art site of Richard Wolf, her dear father Yachmiel ben Yosef Olav Shalom, an esteemed member of the White Show for so many years. The Heilig and Neshama Shemizacha to a tremendous and continuous Aliyas and Neshama and Gan Eden Shamayla Mechayil Achayil L'Mitzasha. We mentioned in the past, Usiyata Deshmai, the famous question, a question the Chavetz Chaim al Torah and many others farm deal with. Why is it that Moshe Rabbeinu seems to be solely focused on his Talmud, Avada? We would expect that he would give more attention and more focus, turning the spotlight on his Talmud, not Talmud, but the Talmud Muvak, the one who is Lo Yomish Mitocha Ohel. So we understand that he's going to give him an extra measure, an extra dosage of love, care, and attention. And thus, at the outset of this week's Parsha, Siyata Nishmai, we turn to the opening narrative, the selection of the Meraglim that would go ahead and scout the land. So what happens after we list the various names? Vayikra Moshe L'Yeshua Benun Yehoshua, Rashi citing the Chazal, the Gemara Sugya, and so the Yekal Yoshiocha Meyatzas Meraglim, the Yebishter should go ahead and be there as a guide to be Moshiach you, is Moiradik and Miyuchadik Siyata D'Shmaya to be Matzi. So the Chavetz Chaim and Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky and Yaakov, everybody's bothered. Why is he focused on Yoshua? So many answer based on Tanya Yonas and Raziel, Karchoma and Vesanusa, he was more of an Anav, and thus he'd be more open and susceptible to being lured, tempted, and seduced by his colleagues. Many different approaches we find in the Rishonim and the Achonim and the Mefarshei Mikra. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky answers a beautiful little keta. You know why? He didn't have to focus on Kalev. Why turn all your attention to Yeshua, Moshe Rabbeinu? If you knew what the upshot was going to be, and you knew what was going to happen, why not give a little extra measure of Siyata D'Shmaya to Kalev ben Yefuneh? Why are you so worried about Yeshua? Dr. of Yaakov Kamenetsky, Nemesli Yaakov. Now, if you're going to tell me because Kalev was greater in Chochmah, after all the Ramban writes in the beginning of the Parsha that the Meraglim listed in order of Chashivas, and Kalev is number 3, Kalev ben Yefuneh Lamati Huda is number 3, in Yoshua, Ephraim, Yosef is not listed until number 5. But numbers 1 and 2, they messed up in the end of the day. So what was Miyuchad? Why didn't he have to daven? Why no extra measure, dosage of Siyata D'Shmaya to Yeshua's trusted friend and colleague, Kalev ben Yefuneh? Azok of Yaakov Kamenetsky, because we know from the Sifri that Kalev ben Yefuneh was married to Miriam Anavia, Miriam Tzadekes. Such a tzadekes of a wife. If you have such a tzadekes as a wife, I'm not worried that anything is going to happen. That's chus. That's tzadekes. She's going to protect you. She's going to shield. She's going to daven for you. Allah milas of having a tzadekes for a wife, I'm not worried. That's Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky's piece. Now, I did raise the Feiner as daiti l'char Rabbi Yaakov Zatzal. I don't really see why you have to come on to that to go in and tell me that it's a mile of the tzidkas. And how do you know they all did have tzaddikim, tzidkaniyas for wives, especially like the Ramban, that these were choshev yidden. So maybe they all said, you're going to tell me, well, she's Miriam Anavia. I'm sure there were plenty of other tzidkaniyas. So what's the nekuda that it's Davka Kalev is married to Miriam? Hey, Nechanami, Rabbi Yaakov, Miriam is a darga of tzadekis gavaldik, but perhaps one could say Poshet. Rashi says at the opening, Rashi bothered by the juxtaposition of the opening narrative of this week's parsha with the closing one of the preceding parsha, that talked about Miriam Anavia getting afflicted, stricken with tzaras. Zog the Heilig Rashi alpi the Medrash Tanchuma. Ashlach lechonoshim lamanisracha parsas Meraglim parsas Miriam the Fishalog Sal Iske Diba Shadibra Be'achia. She spoke about the Moshe Rabbeinu brother. Urishom halolu rov v'lolochu musar. Zog the Rashi alpi the Tanchum and Simon Hay. These Rishon, they saw what just happened. Miriam spoke Lashon Hara about the Moshe Rabbeinu, and she suffered dire consequences, stricken immediately with tzaras, then quarantined, sequestered, michutz lamachaneh. Klai had to wait 7 days until she would return to the Jewish encampment. Says Rashi, how in the world did it happen? How was it shayach? They started out as goysa tzaddikim. You know how it all transpired? Because they saw what happened with their own eyes. They didn't didn't hear about it. They didn't have to read about it in the newspaper, in the print media, on the internet. They knew it. They saw it. They experienced it. And you didn't take Musar, you didn't glean the all-important message. That's the juxtaposition, to go out and see it, to not be changed by it, and not to be transformed, and not to glean the all-important lessons from the Musar Haskell, to take with you. If the whole Yesod was that they saw what happened with Miriam and they didn't take Musar. They didn't take Musar out of it. Rabbi say, isn't it a double passion, a milsa d'pshita? If there's one Yid in the whole world who Avada saw what happened, and he didn't just see it, but he lived through it himself. If there's one Yid in the world that would have taken Musar from Miriam's Taras, who would it be? Davka, the one who's married to Miriam, who suffers the consequences of someone who was kicked out Michutz L'Machane. Miriam speaks Lashon Hara about Moshe. Legabe his marital life. Mida Keneged Mida. She has to now be separated from her husband, from her spouse, from her family for a period of 7 days. Kalev ben Yefuneh is married to Miriam. He had to live without his wife for 7 days. He had to see what life was like. Everybody else, they saw it, and they didn't take Musar. That's one thing. But if there's one Yid in the world who saw what happened, Avada, he was lo Koach Musar, because he lived it, he experienced how somebody spoke Lashon Hara, and now his wife had to leave him. He was without his. How many husbands can manage 7 days without their wives? He's dependent on everything. Miriam is running the ship. Shabbos Kavir Chesed Beis. Rabbi Yosef Yolam Lakarish Yishti Labesi. I know men. They don't know how to cook an egg. They don't know how to dial a phone number. They don't know how to check their emails if their wife's out of town for 7 days. He lived it. That's it. Miriam is the one. She's making breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He's got to make breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He's got to wash the dishes. He's got to clean the laundry. Covered. I eat a month. He didn't have to do too much. At the end of the day, he lived it. He Avada was lo Koach Musar. You don't have to give him Siyata D'Shmaya L'charetz Pasha. Yoshua, you have to give Siyata D'Shmaya. He wasn't even married yet. Who was Yeshua's wife? Yeshua's wife is Ruach HaMazonah, the whole Sugya Megillah. That only is going to take place when Yeshua makes his way into the land. Right now, he's not married. But Kalev was married to Miriam and lived through it. Avada, he would be lo Koach Musar. There's no need to add a letter onto his name. So l'chayra, Kach Nir Lefi. And he is 90, that would be a Pasha Mahalach. But let me share with you a fascinating consequence that emerges. Something that the Trumas HaKri, that's the brother, Rabbi Yehuda Kahana, the brother of the Ketzos HaChayshen, writes the Trumas HaKri. This is the Ketzos Avni Milu Shem Shmaitz's brother. And he writes in his Hagdama, Rosenthal brings in a Kamotze Shol Rav, the Hagdama the Trumas HaKri and Chayshem Mishpat. And the Psach HaShar. Listen what he says, Gavaldi Gezach. He says, why is it later on in the Parsha, Kalev is singled out in the eyes of the Eibishter? Stated Posek Perkid Dalit Posek of Dalit. Hashem speaking to Moshe says, Va'avdi Kalev. He's called in heaven. We spoke about the Meshach Chochmah. Only 3 people in the pages of Chumash who are called in heaven by the Ribono Shalom. Avram Avinu is Avram Avdi, Kalev Avdi, and Zichur Toras Moshe Avdi. And Malachi Gimel Moshe is called in heaven. Hashem Avdi Lochet Avdi b'Moshe. 3 people. What's the Tzana Shava? Ein the Meshach Chochmah Baloischa Mosim Yidvash Avanof Sufim. Akol here Hashem says he is Avdi Kalev. Why Ekev Haisuruach Hacheres Imo? He had a Ruach Hacheres Vayivoliach. He came after me. Amelim Avi Yosef La'artz Shabashom Zohar Yerushena. Nothing about Yoshua. Frek the Tumas Hakim. Where's Yoshua? It wasn't just Kalev. Why are you turning the spotlight on Kalev? Kalev had a Ruach Hacheres and Yoshua didn't. Avdi Kalev. What happened to Yoshua? Yoshua made it out together with Kalev ben Yefuneh. Yes, Kalev is the trusted friend and colleague. And when we get to Yoshua Perk Beis, and Yoshua has to send Meraglim, the Shnei Anoshim Meraglim to scan out Yericho, whom is he going to send? Pinchas, who's Eliyahu Navi. You got to send Pinchas Eliyahu Navi. He knows how to protect himself. And then along with Pinchas was Kalev ben Yefuneh. So here Kalev is singled out. Kalev. Yoshua too. Where's Yoshua? All right, the Tumas Akri Gewaldig. Gemara says in Krisus, you always have to bring the Rishon, the Poshim, you got to bring them to the Minyan, to the Tzibor, Rosh Tevis, and Akanim, Tzadikim, Beinonim, and Rishoim. Chelbana, we have the Chelbana Kayadua. The Ketoris consists of 11 spices, 10 Geshmak, beautiful aromas, fantastic fragrances, and yet we have mixed into the concoction as well, is the Chelbana Sharei Charad. It has a putrid, it emits a terrible odor. What are you doing bringing in the Chelbana? Teretz is, To tell you, Poshe Yisrael also have a place. But what's the Hezbollah? They also have a place. It's got to be deeper than that. Writes the Ran Rabbeinu Nisim in his Drosha Saran and Drush Aleph. The idea of the Chelbuna is not stamazai. Oh, let's show that we're going to bring the bad things and maybe we're going to transform them. Even the good ones can get, once you take a Chelbuna and you surround the Chelbuna has its own kochos that are miyuchad to it. And sometimes they smell bad, but if you take it and mix it in with the vast majority, the super majority of good smelling spices, it will actually enhance. It will enhance the other 11. Obviously, it has kochos. If they decided to mix in the Chelbuna, it's not stammas. Oh, the Chelbuna detracts. Mix it in, and we won't notice the bad fragrance. Mix it, and it'll get absorbed into the larger concoction. No, it has its own kochos, and clearly, if the Eibishter wants a Chelbuna, writes the Ran, there are kochos that only the Chelbuna can bring to the plate. It's bad smell. Don't worry, when you mixed around the other 10 geschmack aromas, they'll transform. They'll take the kochos of the Chelbuna, and it'll be channeled l'tayv. It'll be channeled for good. That's why Zakta Tumas Shakri, we have the famous Gemara Brachos, the end of the 5th parak, the bottom of Lamed Dalet and Beis Rabbi Yavo. Abamokom Shabali Tshuva Omdim Afilu Tzadikim Gemara Meini Chol Namad. Why them yucha? Because they had kochos ra, and they took their passions and their lusts and the greeds and the desires, and they had the taivas. And what did they do? They channeled it. They directed it. And when they bring that passion into Torah, who is Rabbi Yochanan's star disciple, my friends? Bava Metzia, Pei Dalet. Who's the pirate? Who's the bandit? The pirate, the buccaneer, Reish Lakish. And Rabbi Yochanan says, take those kochos, and imamish, the powerful Reish Lakish, and you bring those gavaldige kochos. You bring it into Torah, and you channel Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish becomes the top of the top. Here he is later on in life. Who becomes the Golador, the greatest Tan ever? Rabbi Akiva, Abal Tshuva, Psachim Tesavez. I saw, he was the Amoritz, he said, I saw Tamachochim and Ashchenu Kechamor. And he didn't start learning Aleph Beis until 40 years old. I was from Nosim Perek Vav. And he becomes, it takes those kochas, that passion. What passion? The Feiner Eytan, the same taiva. I want to bite a Tamachochim. Some people say, I see a Tamachochim, I'll spit on the ground. Rabbi Akiva had such passion, such energy. He had such a distaste for Tamachochim. If I see Tamachochim, I'm going to bite him like a donkey. And the morale says, what's a dog? A dog? A bites in the outer of the flesh. Donkey, when it bites, it goes down to the bone. I'm going to get this Tamachachim. You take Rabbi Akiva's koichas satzuvis. You take that taiva, that passion, that energy, and now you channel it and direct it into an Aleph Beis, into Torah. Oh, look what he became. The great Rabbi Akiva. And the Chelbana transforms all the other ones. When you take the koichas of the Chelbana and you mix it in just the way you transform it. Mamela, Kalev ben Yefuna, he didn't have the Siyata D'Shmai. Yoshua, Kol Yoshiyachim Yatzvah. Now he's not answering why did Moshe Rabbeinu focus solely on Yoshua, but Lamaisa, the Metzias Advarim was that Yoshua had a more ridiculous Siyata D'Shmai. Once he had a Siyata D'Shmai, Hashem says, I'm not going to single him out. Moshe Rabbeinu already took care of Yoshua. He gave him a Gemaldik extra dosage of Siyata D'Shmai, put my name into his name, Kol Yoshiyachim Yatzvah Raglib. Mamela, it's not such a chiddush that Yoshua didn't succumb and he wasn't lured and seduced by his colleagues. He had a Maridik of Moshe Rabbeinu, Dikasiyata D'Shmaya. Kalev wasn't given. Kalev did it all on his own. That's why Zakta Tumas Akri, Avram Avinu, before he was Amatabaner the mitzvah, we never find in Chazal that he went to ask his colleagues, Mamre, should I do this mitzvah? He did the mitzvah. All of a sudden he's given a tzivoy of Mila and he says, oh, let me ask them. What does he have to go ask them? He says, now that Hashem is mitzvah, I'm going to do it. I want to speak to people who can maybe give me arguments why I shouldn't do it, so that way when I do it, the Fum Tzara Agra, I'm going to get a Yomoschar. Guy who says, I have no taiva for bacon. No taiva for bacon. It's a big deal. Writes the Rambam and Shmona Prokim. Perak in the 6th chapter of Zakdoman is Perishim Mishnayos and Anavis. A person's not supposed to say, Lo Avshi, I don't like bacon. I don't like this treif. Avshi. Ma says, he goes to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. I do want it. I met him al Tshuvanei Satori years ago, and he was looking at Bracha one day, and I said, Alan, what's bothering you? Why you look so sad? He says, Rabbi, I miss my BLT. I said, Alan, what's a BLT? I know what an FFB is from birth, and a BT is about Tshuva. You miss your BLT? Is that, what's BLT? He says, Rabbi, don't know? He says, bacon, lettuce, and tomato. I miss my bacon. He was at Tzabrak and I said, Alan, can you imagine the schar you go down for lunch? I made a storeroom today, Torah dining room. I said, I don't even know what bacon tastes. I don't have the nisoyan. You don't know your schar from Tzara Agra. And then Rishmuel says it's the last phrase in the original 5 Prakim Perkei Avos. That sums up and encapsulates God's Perkei Avos. It's all from Tzara Agra. Alan, you go down. You want the McDonald's, a Burger King BLT, and you want a bacon, lettuce, and tomato. Instead, you're having all leftover chicken. I don't know, whatever they say. So you imagine the schar that you're getting. I give all the Kalev and Yefuna. Everybody is around. The thing to do is the peer pressure, is to say Lashon Hara and to overcome that. And when you didn't have the Siyata D'Shmai that Yeshua, your trusted colleague, had, and you got to do it all on your own, the Fum Tzara Zok the Yebishter, that's Avdi Kalev. And at the end of the day, Yeshua, you could say, is Kilu Me'ain. The Evan of Moshe Rabbeinu. After all, what did he say to his Rabbi? He says, he's my Abed, I'll take care of him. What about Kalev? Zok to Ribbon Hashem Kavayochel. Avdi Kalev, Ekev Haisi Ruach Acheres Imo. He had a whole Ruach Acheres from everybody else, and he came after me. I'm going to bring him to my land. I'm going to bring him to Eretz Yisrael. The Fum Tzara, that's why Zok the Chumas Akri, the brother of the Ketzais in his Akdama, Psach Shar to Choshim Mishpat. That's the Fum Tzara, that's his own Koach. He did it to Mamish all on his own. What a Gemaldige Koach. That's a Siyata D'Shmaya. That's a Meyuchadik kind of Avdi Moshe. He did it on his own. All the Fum Tzara, like the Shmuel says, that sums up all of life. When you don't have the Siyata D'Shmaya, if we could just be Mosef one Nakuda, Amamish Bekitzer. Now, the Chayra, where did the Yud come from to add on to Yeshua's name? So we mentioned this idea in the past. That Rizal, right? We know already the Yerushalmi, the Chazal tell us the Yud came from Sarai. It came from Sarai. And what are you going to do with me? So now the Yud gets added on to Yeshua. The Chayra, there's a Bechina, there's an aspect of Sarah's Neshama that now joins and becomes part and parcel of Yeshua. So again, he already had to see out the Nishmaya. Sarah is the Noshama Machavos Sa'aretz. Sarah passed and he's saying with Lach Lecha, Ela Aretz Asherek, along with her husband out from Avinu. It's not such a chiddush that Yeshua didn't succumb. But Kalev writes that Rizal and Shar Gilgulim, and the Ramami Pana Gilgulim and Shemus was a Gilgul of whom? Eliezer and Avram. What do we know? The Feiner Eytan. What do we know about Eliezer? Eliezer goes on a shlichus, but the whole time, Ulai lo seva isha lachas acharai. In the beginning of that shlichus, it took a lot of koiches. He really wanted his own daughter. Can you imagine? You have a daughter, and you want her to marry the Godad or Yitzchak Avinu, and the whole beginning of the shlichus, I don't want this one to work out. Ulai, the famous Gra, Pen and Ulai, he didn't want the shidduch to go. He wanted it, and then he had to overcome it. I want to go out and fight it. That's the Gilgal of Eliezer. Kalev, I am going to go with everybody else. I'm going in a Maisa Shelach. I'm going in a Maisa Shlichus. I'm going to succumb. Oh, I have to overcome it. I have to go, Mamish, the Gilgal of Eliezer. I have to overcome it. That's Avdi Kalev. That's an Evan Hashem. That's the Fum Tzara. He is the one singled out. Have a gewaldige Nacht and a great rest of the weekend.